Francis. Hey, my name is Jim Glancy. I'm a faculty member in mechanical engineering, and the chair of mechanical was unable to make it tonight. He actually showed up last night to give the introductions, which was slightly early. So Francis asked me to give the introductions, at least to get the program started. I won't introduce the speakers. I'll leave that to Francis, but I do want to thank ASME for putting on this event. And in particular, Francis, he's done a tremendous amount of legwork, rounding up the 5 speakers you're going to hear from tonight. So thank you, Francis, very much for putting on a great program. So I'll turn it over to Francis to walk you through who the panel members are.
All right, can you guys hear me? All right, so a couple of housekeeping notes. All right, the format of the session is I'm going to give a brief introduction of all of our distinguished speakers. Afterwards, they're going to go and talk about their careers as engineers. We'll then have a directed questions section, which will be led by Eric and myself. Following that, we will open it up to the floor. Everyone good? All right. Hello, and welcome to Engineer Speak. Tonight's event is brought to you by the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. I am Francis Fish, the president of the University of Delaware chapter of ASME. Throughout the year, our members actively participate and compete in build projects. From our award-winning Pumpkin Chunkin' team to our Boeing Chinook factory tour, the University of Delaware chapter actively seeks to expand its horizon. Tonight we have a distinguished panel of professional engineers, including Professors Keefe and Vinson, Mr. Jabakowski, Ms. Lester, and Mr. Langley. To begin with, Dr. Michael Keefe joined the University of Delaware Department of Mechanical Engineering in 1985 after completing a PhD in mechanical engineering from the University of Minnesota. His research interests have involved the integration of solid modeling into design engineering, studying the dynamic events of ballistic impact on fabric structures. Prior to joining the University of Delaware, Dr. Keefe was employed by Honeywell, where his responsibilities included performing finite element analysis on hydrodynamic phenomena and developing numerical methods for predicting warhead target performance. Dr. Vinson. This is a bit longer. Dr. Vinson attained his Bachelor's of Mechanical Engineering degree from Cornell University. He then spent a year at Cambridge University in England on a Rotary International Foundation Fellowship in a graduate program in Advanced Structure Theory and Strength of Materials. He then joined General Electric, where he became the Missile and Space Division, where he held several positions in the Stress Analysis Group and the Aerospace Research Laboratory. During this time, he also attained a PhD in 1961 from the University of Pennsylvania in engineering mechanics, with a doctoral dissertation dealing with new solutions for the behavior of composite material structures subjected to various loads. In 1961, he joined the university professors in forming a new consulting firm called Dynastructures as vice president and senior scientist. By 1964, Dr. Vinson decided to spend the rest of his career in academia. He joined the University of Delaware as an associate professor in civil engineering. By 1965, he became the chairman of mechanical engineering. By 1966, he became a full professor, and the department became the Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering Department. He remained the chairman for 14 years, and in 1979, retired as chairman and became the H. Fletcher Brown Professor of Mechanical Engineering, the title he presently holds as Professor Emeritus. During his tenure as chairman, the department increased from 6 professors to 14. In 1974, Dr. Vinson obtained university authorization to establish the Center for Composite Materials, the first center of its kind anywhere, and has become the first director. The center is still active and growing in size and international importance. He has been active in the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. He is a fellow of ASME and has been a chairman of its aerospace division and twice chairman of its Structures and Materials Committee, of which he has been a member since the early 1970s. Moving on, Joe Jabakowski spent 3 years as a student research assistant and teaching assistant at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. Joe worked at Duffield Associates in the fall of 2004 as a project engineer. He was promoted to a project manager in 2009 and has served as the geotechnical section manager since 2012. Joe was recently chosen as the 2014 Young Engineer of the Year by the Delaware Engineering Society based on educational achievements, activities, and professional competency. Joe has served as an instructor for the university's Civil Engineering Professional Engineering course since 2009. Tom Langley started at Atlantic City Electric as a power plant testing engineer. Then he worked 33 years in the electric utility industry. He held various positions responsible for engineering systems, systems operations, rate design, marketing, field operations, system planning, engineering, substation, field training, process improvement, project management, and engineering emergency management. He did quite a bit. He retired and has worked for 11 years part-time for the Emergency Preparedness Partnership. His work includes preparing emergency plans, running exercises, training, and process improvement. Tom received his bachelor's from Villanova University. He is a registered professional engineer and member of ASME. For fun, Tom volunteers with the American Heart Association, Little Sisters of the Poor, and Meals on Wheels, as well as the ASME section for Delaware. Ms. Megan Lester has her PE and is the Vice President of Geotechnical Associates. Real fast there. I would now like to have our panelists talk about their careers as professional engineers.
You want me to start, all right? Francis pretty well outlined my whole career, so there's very little to add to that, except that I might just add to some of the facts there that it's very interesting. You never know what your career holds in the future, because life is 49% luck and 51% working hard and doing the right thing. And so if anybody had told me when I was your age that I would be a professor, I would have said you're crazy. And you just never know what you might want. In fact, I didn't even like structures and materials as an undergraduate, and I look back and I see that I had very unimaginative professors in that area. There were more dynamic professors in other areas, as you found in your education here. And yet, as things went on, I ended up very early on working in structures and materials, and it fascinated me, and it still does. So you never know what's going to happen. I also thought that I would be with GE, where I worked on the first intercontinental ballistic missile, and I thought that I would make a career at GE because back in those days, all of your parental advice was to get with a good firm, and if you work hard and you do a good job, you're going to be rewarded adequately, and you'll stay with that company your entire career. Well, that isn't the way it is today, and it wasn't with me. What happened with me is that two professors at the University of Pennsylvania asked me to become vice president of this new consulting firm. Why? Was there any logic to it? No. Thiokol won the contract for the Minuteman Stage 1 motor in their Minuteman ICBM, which is still the ICBM in the silos here today. And they decided in their infinite wisdom to do all that work out of Brigham City, Utah, which was 50 miles north of of Salt Lake City. To give you an idea, by the people who worked there was that this is what the world's going to look like after World War III. And they knew that they would never get PhDs to go out there and work, and everybody there was related to the teacher anyway, so it's not good for the kids. And so anyway, they said that you please start a consulting firm and do all of the structures and materials research for the Minuteman Stage 1 motor. All the dynamic loads, all the manufacturing loads, the silo and placement loads, and so forth. So the Air Force made it, they wouldn't take no, and the two professors started this and brought me along as the full-time head of the group of graduate students that we used at the time. So I could go on, but I think you already see that no matter what your plans are right now, if you have any, but if you have plans right now, you know that you may very well end up doing things far different than what you think you are. In fact, you should stay flexible to respond to the opportunities that come along. So I could go on because I have been around a long time. But anyway, I'll just stop there and we can come back to things later. Megan?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. My life as an engineer started in 1996. I interviewed with Geotechnology Associates, which is the company I work for now, and it's pretty much there I stayed. I am the opposite of Jack, where I am the product of hard work and working for a company that I didn't mean that way. It came across that way, but I didn't mean it that way. I'm finding a firm where if you work hard, you will get rewarded, and that's what my employer has been. It's very much been you scratch my back, and I'll scratch yours, and I'm happy to stay there, and I'm happy that I had offers throughout the way to go with other firms and offers to start my own business where clients and friends that developed throughout the years had wanted to give me the startup money to start my own business. But when you consider the resources I have around me, I'd be foolish to have left what I have there. So I'm really happy to be where I'm at. I went to Lehigh University for my undergrad, but one of the things that GTA provided for me, and a lot of firms do this when you're looking, is that they'll pay for your graduate education if you're willing to stay on with them. And so I work towards my master's in the evening while I continue to work. And the one thing is, when you're working in the evening and working or going to school in the evening and working during the day, when you go to school at night, for me, it was really going to school for me, and it had purpose and it had meaning. When I was an undergrad, I was really unsure of myself and what I wanted to do. And once I was able to land a job with a really great firm, when you go to school, you're able to, and work at the same time, you're able to apply those concepts and really put into practice what you're learning at night. So for me, it was an invaluable experience.
Okay, thank you for inviting me, Francis. I appreciate it. I'm a little bit in between everybody really so far. I worked 33 years at the electric utility. When I was there, after 2 years, I thought I'd never stay another year. But things happen. Okay, there was like forks in the road you come across, and you start making decisions. It's probably why I worked in so many different departments. I had a chance to go from the production side into, at that time, it was IT actually, and it gave me some opportunities to see other parts of the company, get involved in other things. And at the time, I also went for my engineer's license. And my engineer's license has paid dividends for me all along. It was one of the credentials I used to get my first manager's job. It also helped me, gave me instant credibility when I had to testify on the regulatory side. Things like that were very important, and it's important to your career. I had a chance early, I thought about going back for my master's, but I was working in Atlantic City in 1971. The nearest place for a master's where I was engineering or business was either Philadelphia or here in Delaware. And I tried it for 2 semesters, and I admire Megan for doing that because driving 2 hours one way and 2 hours the other way, I was really killing it. And I decided then to go back, and I wanted to do something, so I got the professional engineer's license, and it was really worthwhile. It helped me with different jobs, different positions along the way, and even today, in the job I have now, which I work part-time for a company, the lady I work for has her PE and I have mine, and we use that a lot when we advertise the business and we go out and get work. So it's really paid us dividends along the way and helped us a lot. Thank you.
So I started out as a math major because I couldn't decide what I wanted to do, and math was the least common, was the common for everything I liked. So I actually graduated with a BS in mathematics, and then went on. I was going to go on to grad school. I liked school, but I decided I wanted to apply. I enjoy the logic. I enjoy the that kind of a challenge, but sitting in a room all by yourself and at least where I went, math professors were kind of strange. So I decided to go applied math, and that's engineering. So I finished my PhD, and I decided I had a job at Honeywell. They offered to keep me on. I wouldn't have needed a PE at Honeywell directly. It's a huge, big company, and so the engineering license is what allows you to practice engineering to the general public. And if you're looking for if you're in a large company, as long as somebody there, if there's interactions with the public and so on. So they weren't, that wasn't part of what I probably would have done. But I decided to teach. So I came to Delaware, and it was very interesting. I felt a little strange teaching engineering because I had my doctorate in engineering, but that's a very focused degree. So I thought it would be very important for me to go back and get the PE to kind of have credentials as an engineer. So I studied, and I took the FE here, in the room over here in the university. One of my colleagues, Herb Kingsbury, was the proctor. And I was taking it with most of the students that I had just taught, so it was kind of interesting. So I took the FE, and the way it worked then, and it's probably the same pretty much now, is you take the first exam, the fundamental, and that's common, that's good anywhere, so that's a nationwide exam. And then you have so many years of experience, and then you can apply to sit for the PE. It's a second exam, and then if you pass that, then you're a registered engineer in that state. But the second exam is state specific. So you're registered to practice engineering in a state, and there's reciprocity agreements, things like that. But so I was studying the PE exam, but because I did not have an engineering degree from an accredited program, I had a math degree, I needed twice the years of experience as someone with the degree you're getting, an accredited engineering degree. But anyway, so I went through the thing, and I took the PE exam. I've used my professional registration, as Tom said. I've been a consultant, so those credentials are very, very helpful as far as consultant, expert witness kind of thing. But most of the time I don't do that. And so for me, the part of professional registration that's most important has really been the teaching of the design classes. I think there's a level of credibility that one has as a professional engineer teaching design that is more than just the academics side of the issue, more of the equation. So that's what I think is important. And for you, taking the FE as an undergraduate, the data is very clear that the pass rate is reasonable if you take the test right near graduation. It drops off very quickly if you wait a number of years. So and that's the first step. The FE exam is the first step towards licensure. So that's something to consider. As Dr. Vinson was saying, unlike in the past, but my dad worked 40 years for the same company, and that would be great. But when you're moving around, or if you're trying a lot of different things, or if you want to be entrepreneurial and actually do engineering for the general public, then you have to be licensed. You have to be registered.
Evening. My name is Joe Jakubowski, and I originally came to Delaware from New York. And when we talked about putting hard work in and having a balance between the benefits of hard work and luck, and I had a couple years, or a few years in high school and even in college where I worked hard, and I had two events that I thought made me very unlucky, unfortunate events. The first one was applying to school. I'm from outside New York City. I expected a big college campus, a lot going on. And I got accepted to a few schools where that would have been the case, but because of a couple different reasons, Delaware was a great fit for me. And at the time, it didn't seem like it. I didn't know Newark from Newark. I didn't really even know where Delaware was. It was only about 2.5 hours away, but it was a place that I wasn't familiar with. And for me, turned out to be great luck. I mean, that was a great experience for me. I had a great undergrad experience here, worked hard, and I'm a civil engineer now. I practice similar to Megan with soils and with construction and a couple other different types of consulting. But at the time, I was gung-ho for structural engineering. You think about civil engineering, you think about big bridges, you think about big buildings. And I can remember my first interview for a job was with a local design firm, was a structural engineer. And at the time, my girlfriend had actually interviewed half an hour before me. And at the time, she was more qualified, had better grades, better spoken than I was, a better fit. And of course, I didn't get the job. So, in addition to the stress on the relationship, I was a little down on my luck. And at the time, I was contacted by a professional engineer who was friends with one of my professors and reached out to me, and I ended up at Duffield. And it's been, again, a great experience for me. Stayed for about 1.5 years while I was in school and after I graduated from Delaware in 2001. I went up to grad school at UMass. And for me, again, another great experience. And that was something that I was uncomfortable doing. Moving again to another place that the western side of Massachusetts is nothing like the eastern side of Massachusetts. The western side is basically out in the middle of nowhere, more farms than you have cities. So I guess the one thing that I think you should consider is doing things that are different and that make you feel uncomfortable and challenging yourself. And PE is part of that as well. And the PE is something that you have to spend a lot of time on. It's not just another test. It's not, let me just open the book and glance through it. You're going to be tested on things that you probably haven't seen for years. Maybe you've never seen. But for me, the PE was rewarding. I think one of the benefits, in addition to what's been mentioned up here, is the PE allows you to be the boss, too. And when you do that, you have people that work for you, and you get to manage a staff. And with that staff, you can solve problems. And you get to, someone asks you a question, and you may not know that answer, but it gives you the responsibility to have a team that helps you, that can guide you through problems, and can help you, serve other people. So, including the public and being paid for it, it also allows me to do things like this, allows me to teach, and gives me some other opportunities that you don't think about when you're studying.
So we'll now begin our directed question portion. Eric, I'll let you have the first question.
You guys answered a lot of these.
That's what you get for giving us the question.
That was so you'd have well-prepared and well-thought-out answers.
Very good. Very thorough. Okay, so this one. So, what has been the greatest struggle in your career? That's the first question.
How do you want to do this?
We've been to-
Go down the line, or?
Yeah, so we'll go down the line. Since we ended over with Joe, we'll come back this way. So, Joe, start us off.
I don't have one specific instance, and I may be ruining another question, but I think a constant struggle is a balance of your time. When you become proficient at engineering, you have a lot of people asking you a lot of different questions, and you probably go through the same struggles with your classes as well. You want to be involved in a lot of groups, you want to see your friends, you want to see your family, you want to do well, and unfortunately, that doesn't really end. It may even get worse when you start working. So, not to be discouraging, but it's also a good thing. I mean, you want to achieve, you want to do as much as you can, and that struggle also helps you become more efficient, more proficient at doing different things because you want to have that balance and be able to see a lot of things. In the engineering world, you think, well, I'm just going to be really good at this, and I'll just do this for the next 30 years or 40 years. And there are problems that come up, and we probably all see them, whether it's in teaching or research or consulting. You need to put the time in, and it is a struggle to learn new things and to find the time to learn new things and have that balance. So for me, I think being pulled in different directions and having enough time to get everything done that I want to do professionally and personally too.
So one of my bigger struggles comes from my background, and because I did not have an engineering undergraduate preparation, I don't have as broad of a foundation. And specifically in the PhD program at Minnesota, I was focused on what's called the systems STEM, which is the design and mechanics side of engineering, which basically means I'm very weak in fluids thermal. And that has been something that I've had to struggle with. It certainly was something I had to really work on as far as the PE exam, because although I could have hoped that there would have been no fluid thermal exam questions, that was not going to happen. So I had to work harder in that area, and I still remember one of my first semesters here. I'm sitting in my office, same office, 107, and so it's on the main floor. Have my door open, and a student comes in and is panicked, says, Dr. Keefe, I've got a thermal exam coming up, and could you just help me go over these problems? And I said, well, if you give me your textbook, then you and I together can see what we can figure out. But, and so we got through it. But it's for me, that's one of the struggles, has been trying to balance the background given my my undergraduate preparation.
I think the balance comment on Billy is very good, and it definitely is part of work. The jobs I've had along the way, one of the tough ones was operations, and when I was in operations, if there was a storm, I was at work. In the electric utility business, that's the way it is. And my wife always considered herself a storm widow, because I was never home when there was a storm happening. So that was a tough one, but my wife and I always worked that out. And we always made sure we had time for ourselves and the kids and stuff like that, so we would balance that part out. But it is a challenge. I think the toughest challenge I had in the 33 years was working for somebody I didn't respect. When I started the company, I really liked engineering. I was test engineer. I was doing acceptance tests on power plants. I was running all over power plants. I could tell them inside out. inside boilers and everything, because I really liked the job. I had a friend who was a manager, and he says, you know, it's great. He says, you really like it. And he says, you want to go into management? And I said, nope, not interested. And he says, well, what happens someday if you end up working for somebody you don't respect? And he really made me think about that. And it ended up being very important, because later on I did run into that twice along the ways. And you have to start making some decisions and start doing some planning. And if you want to stay with the company that you're at, then maybe you can't stay in that department. Maybe you have to transfer to someplace else. Or maybe you have to leave the company if that's the way it is. So it was one of the challenges I had. Luckily, I was able to move around the company. The company was big enough. And I always like going around learning other things, so it sort of fit into what I was doing. But that was one of my biggest challenges.
I guess one of my biggest challenges is not just as an engineer, but maybe as a manager, is finding people, engineers that want to use their engineering degree. And this is hard to explain. So in recent years, I've seen that there's been a shift in values of students from engineering school. And you know, Joe kind of touched on it a little bit, but the work-life balance is different. When I started with GTA, you know, the more you put in, the more reward you got out. I personally found my job rewarding. With the young graduates today, I find that they're hard to motivate. And if you went through engineering school, for me personally, I feel like I went to engineering school for a reason, for purpose. And, you know, I feel like engineers should, at their places of employment, should want to innately accept additional responsibility and not settle for, just not settle, and constantly strive to improve themselves. And I find right now that as an engineer, it's hard to motivate my staff to want to become better and do more. So I'll leave it at that.
I would say that the biggest struggle for me was the decision that most engineers run into, and that is whether to stay with scientific, technical engineering or go into management. And that's one that comes along at every age. And there were many opportunities to move from engineering into management, and I had always been a people person, and so I thought I could be a successful manager, and was at the time. But management is a full-time, more than a full-time job, because you're father confessor as well as more direct interactions. And so you cannot stay completely up to date or leading the pack in various technical pursuits if you go into management. There's room for everyone. I mean, I was chairman, as Francis read, for 14 years in mechanical engineering. And I found that at any university that you could be a chairman of a department and also retain your excellence in your particular specialty, but it's hard to do. And I made a decision way early that I would never go above being a chairman. I mean, there are fine deanships and provostships and university presidencies, but the thing is, you give up all of the fun that you have as being a specialist in structures or materials or anything else. And so those are good problems. Those are struggles, but they're good struggles when you have these opportunities, sometimes too many at a time. So, and by the way, I think I failed to write down that I also have a professional engineering license. And I might just add that that the Delaware professional engineering license is used anywhere. I am just registered in one state, but I have consulted and been in trials as an expert witness in 10, 15, 20 states, and the Delaware license is recognized by them all. So it isn't, I mean, fortunately Delaware has a good reputation for their licensure, and so therefore you don't need to get, you will not need a Pennsylvania or New Jersey or any other state, probably. I've never found a state that wouldn't accept the Delaware license.
Thank you all. The next question is a bit of a flip on that. What is your proudest moment in your career? And we'll start at this end.
I guess of all of the things that I am happy about and proud of was the formation of the Center for Composite Materials here at the University of Delaware. In 1974, decided to go to the university hierarchy and say that we want an outward and visible sign of an inward ability. Composite materials were very new then, and we had a number of us that were working in that area. And the university rightfully and promptly authorized the formation of the Center for Composite Materials. And I was happy to be the first director. It was interesting that the dean of the College of Arts and Science at that time said, you know, I think that this center is going to be a success because Vincent didn't ask for any money. He just wanted to have the name. And sure enough, the Center for Composite Materials is still probably #1 in the world here at the University of Delaware. That was the proudest time.
That's a tough question. I have a lot of proud moments. I think daily I try and find something that makes me happy each day when in regards to work. If I'm able to help someone, particular client, navigate through a problem, if I'm able to help a contractor troubleshoot something that's gone wrong on his job site, or if I'm able to teach someone or mentor someone on the staff and teach them something new. But personally, I will share a little story. I have a couple proud moments with my employer and being a professional engineer. So I mentioned that when I had graduated from Lehigh, I was really unsure of what I wanted to do and if engineering was going to be right for me. And one of the things that I do as a council member for the Delaware Association of Professional Engineers is visit a bunch of junior and senior engineering classes and promote licensure. And I tell a story at these lectures, and it goes a little something like this. I got hired and I started at our office in Delaware, Maryland. And when I was an undergrad at Lehigh, I did not sit for my FE. And I didn't know the importance of taking that test while I was in school. And I let that slip by. And then I started working, and you know, I had student loans and I had bills to pay. And I really enjoyed working and working outside. And my boss had said to me, you know, don't forget, you know, part of your employment or us hiring you and taking you on is that you're going to take this test and see it through. And I kind of blew it off and shrugged it off. So when I sat for the FE, it was offered twice a year in October and in April. And I was hired in June, so I signed up for the FE, but I let the test date come and go. And then the April date came around. And at the time, I was working in one of the fastest growing counties in the United States, in Maryland. And, you know, there was opportunity to work. So the project that I was covering was working on a Saturday, and my boss had mentioned to me, hey, you know, isn't that test coming up? Don't you have to take your FE soon? I was like, yeah, but my job's working on Saturday. And he said to me, well, you're going to go take the test. And I was like, no, you know, I could really use the overtime. I prefer to cover the job. You know, I'm the one who knows what's going on out there. I don't want anybody else covering for me. And so he looked at me and he said, okay, that's great. If you don't take that test on Saturday, don't come to work on Monday. So, so that made it really clear and simple for me. So I think that was my proudest moment, is that began my path to licensure and really taking my career a little more seriously, and essentially getting, I mean, not, I want to say getting a kick in the ass from someone is my proudest moment, but that's what it was. And, you know, every time I could share that story, and if I help one person understand the importance of licensure, I think it's a proud moment for me. So.
Very interesting. A lot of proud moments when you work, especially over the years. And I think about projects I brought in on time and under budget, things like that, real-time systems and other things along the way. But sometimes it's the difficult ones, or the ones that probably aren't viewed as a big success, that end up being some of your proudest moments. I started at Lansing Electric. We got bought by Delaware Power, and I was director of system operations. And system operations is the department that controls the electrical system. And so when we combined the two companies, I took over system operations for South Jersey and the Delaware Peninsula. Right before we merged the companies, the operators over here had a problem, and they dropped load on the southern part of the peninsula, which is not good to do. Okay? And luckily it was spring day, and they got everything back pretty quick. But during one of those summers, right around 2000, we hit the 5 days, 105 heat index, and we lost the generator down on the peninsula, and we had some other problems over in Jersey. And the operators were they were worried, okay, because since they had the problem before, the previous management had told them, in no way we're dropping load. Well, sometimes you have to drop some load to save the system. It's more important to save the system. So sitting there, and now you're into a leadership issue. You're talking to people. It could be union operators that made somewhere, and you're going to tell them that if you're in this situation, you do your job. You're an operator, you know what you have to do, and you do it. And sure enough, unfortunately, we had to drop some load that day. We lost a second generator and a third generator, and we had to start rotating outages for 7.5 hours. Okay. Needless to say, we got investigated. We got to report this, right? So I would end up being in front of a tribunal from the Department of Energy. I appeared before the New Jersey Board of Public Utility Commissioners, the Delaware Commissioners, the Maryland Commissioners. Okay, only Virginia left us alone. And for whatever reason. And so when it was all said and done, when the investigation was all done, the Department of Energy came out and said that in voltage, that's the key for keeping the system up, that Delaware Peninsula was at the knee of the curve, and the operators acted just in time to save the system. And I really felt good about that afterwards, because they did exactly what they were supposed to do, and we got through what we had to. It was a bad situation, but end up being, in my case, one of my proudest moments. So you do never know what's going to hit you along the way, so, yeah.
So for me, there's the proudest moments been when my colleagues have come up to me and said, you're doing a really good job. And so once was with the ASME group when one of the engineers, Rowan Perkins, said to me, you've been here at the university, you've been doing all these things, and so he went forward and recommended me as an ASME fellow. And to have a colleague come up and say, you're really doing good work, and to have then it be recognized nationally. The other one is like Joe, the Delaware Engineering Society came up to me and recognized me as their Engineer of the Year. And again, this is just, they came up to me and said, we think you've done some good work. So that the recognition by peers that, as you're doing the day-to-day stuff, that it really does make a difference, it really matters. I think that's been the proudest for me.
I think similarly, being recognized by your peers is definitely something that it sneaks up on you. You don't realize you get involved in the day-to-day grind. You don't realize how much you're doing and how many people you're affecting and how many people you're talking to. I was also surprised because I was named a young engineer. This is only about a year or so ago, so I wasn't really that young. And that was a nice, that was a nice honor. I guess one other moment is when I came back to Delaware. So I left, I went to grad school in Massachusetts, and even when I came here, I was originally reluctant for undergrad, and going into soils and going into construction, I still wasn't really sure that was a fit for me. But when I came back here, probably 3 or 4 years after I graduated, returned to the company that I worked for when I was in school, did the type of work that I went to grad school for, did the type of work that I did as an intern for undergrad. I think that was one moment where I really felt proud and where I said, this is it. This is exactly what I wanted. I made the right decision. All my friends lived in Delaware, were from Delaware, are somehow related to me now because of the university. So knowing that everything, in the end, it did work out for me, I think was really a rewarding moment as well.
So, one more question that I have is, so you're all professional engineers, you're all said you're the boss, you're the leader in your fields that you're in. Who do you turn to when you need advice or help? Because you guys are kind of the top people.
We'll start with Joe, and we're going to make this a lightning round because we want to get audience questions in as well.
Okay, that's good because the back-to-back questions is tough. I guess the shortest and simplest answer is that I may be a boss or I may be a boss on a project, but usually every boss has a boss. So I've been in the company about 10 years now, and I may not directly report to some of the senior members of our company, but they're still the boss. And they still have as much experience as I've been alive. So there are always people to reach out to. There are always senior consultants, people that mentor you even when you don't even realize it. So I think there is always somebody out there, a coworker, a colleague that you can turn to.
That's pretty much the same. We do everything as a team, pretty much, especially in the design classes, so there's always a colleague I can turn to, always.
I would say the same thing. I always had somebody I considered a mentor, and it depended on the issue, what was going on. So I have either friends or mentors I would turn to and talk things over. It's very important to be able to talk things over and also get some different opinions.
I would second everything that the gentleman from me said. The other thing is to remember, just like you're here for this panel, AMSE, professional societies, technical organizations, the people that you meet through networking, not necessarily at your own firm, your peers, stay in touch with your friends after graduation, because as you become a project manager, senior project manager, or the leader somewhere else, they're going to go along that same career path, hopefully, as you. So if you keep in touch, especially with the means that you have now through LinkedIn and some other social media, you'll be able to not only blow off some steam with one another, but also talk about projects, and they'll be a great resource years down the road.
I agree with everything Megan said. It turns out that whatever you choose to do, you'll want to stay active in ASME. There's Delaware section, Pennsylvania section, wherever you live, you will have an ASME group, as well as if you're a specialist in some other area, there are other professional organizations. There's many good reasons to stay active. You get a completely different viewpoint when you're not embedded in just the company that you're might be working for, or the organization. And so it's also good to know what's going on around the neighborhood, around the state, etc. So please, when you light wherever you light after you leave Delaware here, stay active with the professional organizations.
We'll now open it up to audience questions. Please raise your hand and we'll call on you. All right, so I saw the first hand in the back there.
So I have two questions. The first one is, you mentioned all the struggles and successes and everything else, but what was the one aspect of engineering that made it all worth it? And so that's the first question. The second question is, what was the one course in undergrad that you found to be most challenging or necessary to restate?
All right, so to restate the question, what was your hardest or most enjoyable course as an undergrad? And what has been the most, could you say it again?
Yeah, so like, what makes engineering worth it to you?
Yeah, so what makes it worth it to you to be an engineer?
So for me, it's the problem solving. It's the challenge of a problem and then being able to attack that problem and solve it. That's the part I think that's the most exciting. And again, my undergraduate, I had a calculus teacher who only spoke Serbian. And I'll end right there.
I'll add on to what Mike said. When you become a problem solver, that is far and away the most rewarding thing, is to be able to problem solve. But when people return to you because of your problem solving abilities, that's what I find most rewarding about the job. And it doesn't have to be clients necessarily, but peers and employees, or whoever you may, even people outside of work, just because they understand the way your mind works. So being an engineer is good.
I would say from engineering school, I got a real good feel for persistence, to make things happen and get things done and not give up. And then I would follow up with what everybody else said on the problem. The challenge of coming across a problem and solving the problem and working with other people to make that happen was extremely rewarding to me.
What was your favorite undergraduate class?
I wouldn't say my favorite. My toughest one was compressible fluid flow.
I didn't have to take that.
I kept the book all these years because I just wanted to remember how bad that was.
Just as a follow-up, I think the most rewarding, what makes it worth it is the teamwork, and also being able to solve a problem with people that are different than you, that think differently than you, and also people that you don't get along with. You work in offices where there are people from different areas of the country that have different backgrounds, and you don't always get along. But when it comes to a project and being able to pull different personalities different knowledge bases and being able to solve a problem because everyone's contributing their strength, I think is one of the times where I really, appreciate what we're doing with engineering.
What was your most memorable undergraduate class?
I think my most memorable class was actually structural design. I wanted to be a structural engineer, and between that and my girlfriend stealing my job, that was probably, the writing was on the wall. That was not going to work out for me.
Being in academia for the last few decades, I would say the most satisfying thing is being able to lead the research activities of 22 people who got their PhDs under my direction and 40 master's degrees. And that's very satisfying, and I keep in touch with most of them, and that's very good. And as I stated earlier, structures was not my first joy in life, but fortunately, I spent 2 years in the Air Force. I was an ROTC officer and worked in a group that was all structures and at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and that turned it around, and so that was most satisfying and has been my life. That's why I've published 8 textbooks.
All right, other audience questions?
Just a quick question. We said that the PD exam works in one state, but should you move and want to work in another state, do you have to retake the PD exam for that state?
You should. She's in charge of.
I'll help with that. So, when you take your FE, so the rules have changed. So I'm going to start with the FE and work our way through the PE. So the FE is now a computer-based test, and that can be taken any time of year. You may have heard us say that prior, when we took it, it was only offered twice a year. So if you guys have pens and paper, or can you remember this? When you register for the FE, if you are a second semester junior, you can start to register for the test. You want to try and take it as a second semester junior or as a senior, right? Or as a senior, and you register through ncees.org. And once you register through NCEES, you can register through DAPE. You have to register or associate yourself with the state. It doesn't necessarily have to be your home state, but the one good thing about if you register for the test while you're still in undergrad and select Delaware as your state, then the statistics and the testing come back here, and it's a better metric for the university to be able to track how their students are doing. So you get your FE. What happens now is that upon graduation, hopefully you get a job with an employer, and in the state of Delaware, you have to have 4 years of experience working under a professional engineer. And you want to document that experience and keep yourself a little kind of like a diary. And if you can show progressive experience, that how you built on each position to the next, that's going to be helpful, because other states will require you to show progressive experience. Other states require different things. They're not all the same requirements. If you graduate from Delaware with an ABET accredited degree and have that 4 years of experience, and you took your FE prior to your 4 years, you're called a model law engineer. So, okay, so you go to sit, you have your 4 years of experience, you have an engineer that can vouch for that experience, you've taken your FE, successfully passed, so now you have to sit for your PE. So the PE is still a handwritten test, and that's still only offered twice a year. So once you pass, again, you'll register in a state. It doesn't typically it's the state that you're working in. And each state is different. In the state of Delaware, you would have to submit your transcripts. You have to take an ethics exam. You have to prove that you are who you say you are. You have to provide a photo as well. They will pull your FE score from the database through NCEES, and you sit for the exam. Once you have successfully passed the exam, they will send you notice, but you still have to go through a licensure application in some state. And typically, Delaware follows closely to the model law, which is all those things that I just said about your transcript, and the successful pass of the 2 8-hour exams. Each state is different, so you can apply by comity or reciprocity to another state. Typically, when you want to sign and seal a plan in the state that you're working in, you have to have a license in that state. If you're working for a firm, that firm has to also hold a permit to practice engineering, or what's called a certificate of authorization. So if you're working as an independent consultant, you will need your PE license to sign and seal plans or documents in that state, and then the firm that you're working for would need to have that as well. But just remember, it doesn't matter what state you're in, and each sector of engineering is different. My deliverable as a geotechnical engineer is not the same as a structural engineer, so I don't always have to sign or seal the documents that I send out. But in order to offer engineering service, practice engineering service, whether it be, applied science, research and development, not just design and consulting, you still have to have that, hold a professional engineering license in the state that you're offering those services in. Does that clarify things? Okay. So, and then to register in the state of Delaware, or if you want to look at additional requirements, NCAAS has a listing by state what's required, but if you want to just review what Delaware has, the website for Delaware is dape.org. So ncaaas.org and dape.org.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. My one comment to add to that is this is being videotaped and it will be available on our website. So in case you did not get either of those websites, you'll have another opportunity to view it. All right, so one more question. Who's got one?
What's the passing rate for the FE, like pre-graduation, or about the passing rate?
The numbers I used to see were that mechanical engineers had one of the higher passing rates. It was somewhere like 80%, but I think the national average for passing is around 70, 75, something in that range. Delaware, but that was for first time. Again, this is just anecdotal. I don't have the data in front of me, but my recollection was that second time or later career people, it dropped like to 30%.
It's not a great success.
It drops them dramatically. So you did very well. so I mean, those are numbers I remember off the top of my head.
The one thing to keep in mind with the FE is that it is called the FE because it's the fundamentals of engineering. It is everything in your core courses that you're taking right now. So while you'll use the principles out in the real world, you're not going to be doing the same types of problems post-graduation. So you're going to be doing more real world type problems. So that's why it's so important, because even though you'll be going through calculations and problem solving, you're not going to be using those basic equations, and you're not going to have the textbooks available to you. So if you really want to ensure that you're going to pass, take it in your junior or senior years. And the beauty of taking it computer-based right now is that you can take it anytime. And what I've said to the civil engineers is, if you're unsure of yourself, just go take it. If you fail, who cares? I mean, other than the expense of taking the test, nobody needs to know except for you, but it will immediately tell you what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then you can focus your studying efforts to those areas that you're not doing so well in. So if there are practice tests out there, but just go ahead and get a feel for what it's about, and instead of having to wait another 6 months to take it like in years past, all you have to do is just wait 6 weeks to re-register for the test now.
So the FE is a breadth, it's a broad-based exam, where the PE actually is very focused in what you're going to be, say, is your expertise. So you're much better prepared as junior, senior undergraduates for that broad kind of FE thing test.
All right, with that, I'd like to conclude tonight's event. We'd like to thank you all for coming. Our next event is the Yingling Brewery Tour on the 24th of October. There are 20 spots available, so we've already put up registration for that, so if you're interested, get right on that. Let's have a hand for our panel.